Welcome back, everybody. Kyle, what's up?
Oh, the Raiders won. Unfortunately, Packers lost. That's it. That's how I'm feeling right now. Didn't
Yep.
didn't think that it was shocking by any means. I mean, you know that I picked the Raiders in this game. You picked the Packers. What was surprising is that before the game started, there was the picks that they normally do, and this is how it went across the board. Uh,
Green
Green
Bay
Bay
all
fully
day. Wow.
fully across the board. So I mean, I look at it and I was like, man, everybody's that confident in this team, and
hmm
I just didn't understand why that people were so confident about Green Bay, and I still look. Green Bay had a chance at the end, but I always thought this game could go either way. You know what I mean? I didn't feel going into this game that this is a grand slam Green Bay across the board type of game, right?
Yeah, yes and no. For me, obviously, I picked Green Bay, like you said earlier, right? And I thought there was enough because this Jimmy G led offense in the Raiders wasn't looking good these last few weeks. Like I said, he had one. His best game was in a game where he threw three interceptions, right? And still lost because he threw two touchdowns. So he was injured and then he came back for this one. It just did not look to me like the Raiders were going to be do as well as they did. And I mean, let's be honest, 17-13 in a game where a ton of the scoring didn't really happen until the second half. It wasn't a great game. And for it to be across the board Packers, yeah, I don't know, man. There should have been one or two Raiders sprinkled in there.
Yeah, and the Raiders didn't score any points in the first quarter. Then they scored 10 in the second quarter, 10 in the third, and then seven, or no, zero in the third and
Zero in the
seven.
third. Yeah.
So the Raiders kind of going a quarter without scoring, 10 points, a quarter without scoring, a touchdown. Not
hmm
impressive, not super efficient. Jimmy Garoppolo just over 200 yards passing. But I want to start with the Green Bay Packers and their passing because Jordan Love, he threw 30 times today,
hmm
but only completed about half of those, 16 for 182 yards. He had three interceptions, just in case you guys missed it. And by the way,
Woo.
this Raiders defense, I'm going to give them a little bit of credit here. But
hmm
last year, the Raiders were 29th in passing yards allowed per game. And this team looks a lot different. The Marcus Peters signing, I don't know what you want to point to, but they are ranked right now at number 12. So a major
Wow.
improvement so far this season to last season.
hmm
And is this when you look at Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers? Does this say more about the Raiders' ability to stop the pass or Green Bay's inability to get anything going offensively?
No, I think it really does speak to the Raiders defense and how much it's improved. I mean, it went up what? What is that? 17 spots since
Yeah,
last season or the beginning of this season? And I want to actually highlight this because Tyler is in the chat. Tyler said, "Sup guys, sorry I couldn't come in. Stop. I was at my friend's house. Love was garbage, but on that last drive there was two drops by Dubs and Musgrave, but Love's decision making has to improve." This says more about the Raiders because of those drops. I think it's the Raiders defense and their ability to make, to get these guys to get interceptions from these guys. That's huge, man. And you saw that. They dropped passes. Musgrave and Dobbs dropped passes there.
yeah.
But what happens at the end? You get an interception there in the end zone, and dude, I think the Raiders defense looked really really good, especially down the stretch here against a very potent Packers passing game.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the other thing too is last week Detroit, who is number 1 in the NFL in yards allowed rushing per game, completely shut down the Packers. But then when we looked at it after the game during our reactions, I think we only saw there was like 9 carries. So the
Mm-hmm.
Packers were forced to not be able to run the football. And then going into this week, you knew that running the football was going to be a point of emphasis, especially after the fact that the Packers found out last week that if they abandon the run, it's very difficult for them to win with their style of play.
Mm-hmm.
Even with Aaron Rodgers, they were very reliant on a solid running game. And AJ Dillon today had 20 carries, 76 yards, one touchdown. Is this a successful day in the office for Green Bay in the running game, in your opinion?
100%. And you saw what they were able to do there in the first half too. They were able to run the ball really effectively. Not only that, but the Packers defense was able to stop Josh Jacobs a lot too. But AJ
Yeah.
Dillon had himself a game, and I told you during the stream, dude, like they were gonna call on him because of the injury to Aaron Jones, and he stepped up, got a touchdown, got his 76 yards, got his 20 touches. He did what he was supposed to do. It just, at the end of the day, there was drop passes. They kind of a little bit abandoned the run. Sure, the drive before that last drive in the fourth quarter, they were trying to get it to him. But, unfortunately, they couldn't get anything going. But A.J. Dillon had himself a really, really good day today.
Yeah, I think early in the game, Green Bay, I think it might have been their third drive, where they passed it on first, second, and third down, and it didn't work, right?
Yep.
And I know that you have to remain balanced, but to me, I'm just like, look, Jordan Love is having a bad day. Why not run the ball more with AJ Dillon? Because you saw that one drive, they had so much success, and it seemed like the only time they kind of got out of rhythm was when they were trying to make a big play downfield.
Yeah.
And I understand the temptation to be like, okay, we've been running the ball effectively. That's going to open up the passing game. And then you got to kind of ride that line of like, okay, is it important to open up the passing game and take a chance of, Jordan Love throwing a bad pass? Or do we just stay one-dimensional? Because to be quite honest, the reason this game is kind of, I guess you could say, boring or whatever, at the end of the day, it's because Green Bay had 182 yards passing and 3 interceptions. A.J. Dillon was under 100 yards. And still, Green Bay had a chance to win this game at the end, which is like, how?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how was Green Bay? And it makes you feel like maybe the Raiders are kind of bad too, So,
Yeah.
do you think any differently from any of these teams, moving past this game?
I think to start the game, yes, right? We said that the Raiders look just like they look like a wet paper napkin, just letting anything through, right?
They
And
look
then
like
dog
shit.
Thanks for catching me on that one. They look like
Dog
shit. But in situations where the defense needed to clamp down, they were able to do that. And I think we look at this, right? And yes, AJ Dillon was held to under 100 yards. The passing game was held to under 200 yards. But they were still able to get really, really close there at the end. And you got to look at the situational aspect of it all, right? The Raiders were able to stop them there in the fourth quarter, get that interception in the end zone. And shit, I mean, there was 50 seconds left. They may have been able to stop them and maybe hold them to field goal range, even though they were going to go for a field goal there. But you got to look at the situation and say, you know what? The Raiders looked rough in the first half, but when it came down to the game time, to the fourth quarter, they held it. And that's exactly what they did. You could have given them all the yards that the Packers wanted in the first half. Raiders still won at the end of the day because of how they were able to just shut that offense down.
Yeah, and this game was a good example too of a game that is lacking the explosive. There was not much explosive. Like, you had that big pass to Christian Watson. He had 3 receptions on the day. So not being utilized a lot, but he did have 91 yards because he averaged 30 yards per catch because of that one crazy, catch that inflated it. But the point is they didn't utilize Christian Watson the way that they need to. In my opinion, you found yourselves a really talented late round pick wide receiver, and he has the ability to be really special. And even on that last play, I still don't like that he didn't get himself in better position to make the catch. There's a certain, it's like boxing out, when you're waiting for a free throw.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't know how much I can blame him, because I just wish he would have made a more attacking the ball aggressive type of catch there. But at the end of the day, Jordan Love threw that ball late. That corner should have never had time to not only run to, get in position, but then to even turn his hips and box out the wide receiver. That, like, to me, that's like Jordan Love's got to throw that ball quicker. And we saw, I can count like 5 passes where Jordan Love was either not on the same page with his halfbacks, wide receivers included, even tight ends. There were just certain plays where it's like the running back turns this way and the ball goes that way, or the ball could have been thrown right in the chest, and instead it's he's got to reach out to here, and then the ball gets tipped up and intercepted. And it's all these little things, but it looks like they're adding up. And the grass, no pun intended, may not be greener on the other side of this Aaron Rodgers deal. And I was bullish on how good Jordan Love would be. I really believe in mentorship. I think that's a huge part of the game that isn't like appreciated enough. Is like Tom Brady's replacements are good. We saw both of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers' replacements play each other today. That should tell you something,
Exactly.
But it's just the little things, the little details. You can tell that he's not fully there yet. You know what I mean? And he gets grace, right? Because he's in his fourth year or third year, but he's like a rookie this year, basically. So let me ask you this: how much grace? How long is the leash? What is the threshold? Because the Packers are, accustomed to greatness and they expect greatness, but it's also not realistic. But I don't believe in throwing people away as they're growing. So you got to kind of predict his ceiling. So what do you think about? We haven't really talked about this because it's a new situation, but how safe is Jordan Love?
Man, I don't know, man. It's tough to say because this is only his fifth game really that he started and played. He's made some spot starts during Aaron Rodgers' tenure towards the end, and he's made some, like, oh, let me go in for Aaron Rodgers here in garbage time or something like that. And we've seen him. We didn't really expect much of it, but you're right. The Packers fans are expecting greatness. Jordan Love, when he had that game-winning drive against the Saints, everybody was like, shit, man, this is the guy. Even I said it. I was like, oh, man, I think the Packers found another guy, right? Like, we were looking at it. So on the opposite end, when something like this happens, and Tyler here mentions it, right, about the throws that he forces, you look at that, and I said it during the stream, I don't love it, but I love that he is aggressive there and throwing it in the corner of the end zone. It was intercepted, but the way he intercepted it, he held it like this. The ball was right there. It was intercepted that way. That goes through. We're praising Jordan Love for being aggressive and going to the end zone there in the fourth quarter with still a little under a minute left, right?
Yeah.
So things bounce one way or the other. We're praising him or we're going crazy.
Right.
I think Packers fans have to give him 2 seasons because Packers fans were booing Aaron Rodgers his first season as a starter. He did a little bit better his second season, and look what happened. He won them a Super Bowl and is going to go into the Hall of Fame as a Packer. I think with Jordan Love sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for as many years as he did, as many seasons as he did, you got to kind of like what you're seeing here. And LaFleur, still a really good coach. I think Packers fans are safe to give him at least 2 seasons. And if this forcing throws continuously happens, if he's going on fourth quarter drives to win the game and he's not winning the game, I think that's when you have to start looking at the draft or looking to bring in maybe like a 5-year vet, to trade or something like that. Because San Francisco, quick to give up on Trey Lance after a season. Yes, he was injured, and yes, Brock Purdy came in the clutch and has been undefeated since. But for the Packers, this is one of those franchises, and Jordan Love is one of those quarterbacks that needs this season and maybe all of next season to really become the Packers quarterback of the future.
Yeah, and the Raiders too. If they because they find themselves now at 2-3. Okay,
both teams 2-3. Yeah.
So both teams are at 2-3. So if you're a Raiders fan, you're always thinking about trying to get to 500, and the Raiders have a pretty favorable path. And actually, next time we see them in prime time, the Raiders could potentially be playing a game that will put them in the top 12 teams in the NFL. And hear me out. If they beat, and they're going to not. Okay. But let me just, for Raiders fans, this is for you. If they beat the Patriots, which is a very winnable game, and then the next week they play the Bears, which, But the Bears may be good now. The Bears may be good now, but still, if you're a Raiders fan, those are the two games you want to play. You don't want to play the Lions or Dolphins or Chiefs or Chargers. You want to play the Patriots and Bears, right?
Yeah.
So they could win those two games, and next thing you know, they're 4-3, and then the following week we see them on Monday Night Football. We'll be streaming that Raiders at Lions, and the Lions just beat the Packers. Maybe the Raiders beating the Packers. Maybe the Raiders are closer than the Packers. But look, at the end of the day, man, I just don't think the Raiders are that good of a team. And I'm not going to apologize for saying it. It's really not that they're in the AFC West. I would take Denver to beat the Raiders tomorrow. And the Broncos will play the Packers next time we see the Green Bay Packers play a game. They have a bye week. So think about how long they have, because they played on Thursday. So they have an extra 3 days already because they played on Thursday. And then they go into their bye week. So the Packers are going to go
17 days?
Like 17 days without playing a football game. So they're going to come in and give Denver their best shot. But still, I think we're going to learn a lot in the next couple of weeks, depending on how the Raiders respond to games against the Patriots. And the one in Chicago is going to be in Chicago after that on October 22nd. So the Raiders, they weren't impressive at all. Remember, they got beat real bad by Buffalo. They did beat Denver in the season opener, but then they got destroyed by Buffalo, and then they lost to the Steelers, and then they lost to the Chargers, and then we were just like, the Raiders are one of the worst teams in the NFL. But now you see a clear path to being 4-3 in just a couple weeks. So you got to be feeling pretty good if you're a Raiders fan.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get easier.
No, and
after that.
Like you said, not impressive, not really an impressive win. These Raiders, man, they win ugly. They win ugly so far, these two wins, right? They win ugly and they lose even uglier. So if you're a Raiders fan, you're loving that they're 2-3 right now. You're kind of looking at the Broncos and being like, look, we have a chance and hopefully maybe a wild card. It's still early enough in the season, but we as outsiders kind of know, man, with the team they've got plenty of players. But Jimmy G might not be it, man. It might be Aiden O'Connell. It might be somebody else in the future. But if we know Jimmy G's not the guy for the future for the Raiders, but they paid him anyway. And Raiders fans just bask in this win, because this might be a win that you kind of escaped with, I think.
Yeah, and that's what has been bothering me all year about watching my team is like, I hate watching I just hate watching a team that doesn't deserve to win.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, we don't deserve to win, but neither do you. Like, that was pitiful on both accounts. Remember that Colts Broncos Thursday Night Football 6-9?
Yes.
No one deserves to go home with a W when you play like that.
That should have been a tie.
And this was a game where you felt like, oh man, why is my team only got one win? And I know they could beat both of the teams the way they're playing tonight. But for some reason, when they play your team, they have their best game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Every time.
It's like, what the fuck? So, yeah, man. Yeah. Packers, though, I mean, it's the NFC. The AFC is going to be loaded. I don't see the Raiders in the playoffs, to be honest. So, but looking at the Packers, it is a long season, and they're only one game back. Just because Love had bad 2 games doesn't mean that 2 weeks ago when they came back and beat the Saints, Packer fans weren't like, we got our guy. This is going to be our guy. So you can't let a loss to the Lions, because the Lions are going to expose everybody that plays them until the NFL realizes how good the Lions are. They are the Eagles of last year. They are going to be a team that exposes everybody. So really, it's just this loss. Jordan Love didn't look good. Jordan Love looked bad. Okay, but it's just one game. We're going to have to just kind of ride out this whole thing with him, because one way or another, you have to know what you got. And the only way to know what you got is to just throw them in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
If at the end of the year, he's put more games that look like tonight than he did games that look like the Saints game, then, you may have to make a decision there. But I think it's a little bit of an overreaction for the Packers to feel like they don't have their guy after tonight.
Yeah. And I feel the same way. Huge overreaction. You've got a good coach. Your defense looks solid. more solid than the beginning of the year, really, right? These first few games. Just give Jordan Love time. You know, you guys have given quarterbacks more than enough time the last 30 years, the last 20 years, plus years, whatever.
Yeah.
So you guys are patient and you guys usually come out on top. So, Kyle, you got anything else to say before we get out of here for the instant reaction and into Only Football Week 5 recap?
No, that's all I got. Can't wait to do the recap. I hope to see all of you in there. We're about to open up that stream just like we opened this one. So stay tuned to watch us break down every game that happened week 5.
2 minutes, everybody. 2 minutes, and we will be right back. All right, Kyle. We will
All right,
see
brother.
each other in 2 minutes.
See ya.
See ya.